Alright, this is going to be the installation of the viewing window for the top bar Beehive, and returning again to the measure twice, yea even three times concept to make sure that your viewing glass is not bigger than the hole. And so what I've done is I measured my viewing glass, which is 42, the actual plexiglass, which I have right here. I have a piece of plexiglass here, right? The plexiglass is 42 inches long. I want a nice big viewing window. However, it's going to be installed on the inside. It's going to be installed on the inside, and because in the wintertime, or anytime you're not using the viewing glass, you're going to want to cover that viewing glass. But particularly in the wintertime, you're going to keep that closed. And what I've done here is I've measured such that I have 1 inch more of wood, left, right, bottom, and top, than I do of plexiglass. So there's going to be a 1 inch difference in that size. Alright, just so that you can see what I'm talking about, I'll overlay the plexiglass to the measurement of what the hole is going to be, and you'll be able to see what the overlap is going to be on the inside of the plexiglass to the wood. Alright, well, I had considered flipping this thing upside down onto the ground and getting down on my knees to cut this thing with the circular saw, but I just don't think that's going to be necessary. I've leaned it up against this fence here, and I think that's going to give me enough stability to be able to cut this thing. Well, alright, I've decided to rethink this thing and not do this with a circular saw, which I could do fairly easily, but you know, I think instead I'm going to use a jigsaw, and here's why. You see, the problem is this: I can't mess this up, because this piece, when I cut this piece that's going to come out of here needs to be nice and uniform, cut. I just can't, drill a hole and go in or just lay my circular saw down here and lean it down and start cutting, because it's going to have to be nice and uniform. The reason why is when I install a 1x6 here for the cover for the lid, this piece that I take out of here is going to be screwed to the 1x6. It's going to be attached to the 1x6, because in the winter time we're going to need the insulation of this board plus the cover to make sure that this viewing window does not let in too much cold into this hive. Even though it's summertime, it's June right now in Missouri, and it's nice and warm. But come winter time, I just want to make sure that there's going to be plenty of insulation here. So once I cut this out, I'm going to screw it to the 1x6, and that will be our cover. Alright, well, I couldn't find my wood bit, so I could simply drill a hole in the corner here and start my jigsaw, so I decided to just lean my jigsaw and try to start it, and as you can see here now, I have marred the outside of this, outside of the line from where the cut's supposed to be. So my only hope is that my cover, the 1x6 I'm going to put on here as a cover, is going to cover this up so it doesn't look ugly. And so what I did was I went ahead and kind of rethought this thing, went ahead and used the circular saw, and I've already cut my two horizontal cuts, and now I'll come back with the jigsaw and finish it out, now that I have a starting point. And I'll just make this curve the best I can. It's not rocket science. The bees are not going to be able to tell if I've rounded it off just a little bit on each corner. It's not going to make enough of an impact in the wintertime, since we're going to have the 1x6 on top of it. Alright, now that I've been able to successfully cut out the section for the viewing window, I'll come along here and sand this off so I don't have a sharp edge here. I don't like have sharp edges on these things. As a matter of fact, I'll I want to mention to you that on the top bars themselves, let me just divert here for a minute. I've gone back by hand and sanded these so that when I'm handling these top bars, there's no sharp edge here now. I went along with sandpaper on every single one of these edges, and they're smooth to handle here, no sharp edges. So because why should I have to handle sharp edges if I don't have to? So just go ahead and knock off the sharp edges so it feels comfortable in your hand when you're handling them. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and, as I said, knock off the sharp edges here and clean this up with sandpaper, and I'll do the same thing with the other board, and we'll go from there. Alright, I wanted to show you just one more thing that I've done now since I've cut this thing out. I went in and made my measurements here, made some marks, and temporarily what I've done is I just tapped in a finishing nail here and here, and just so that I can, for now, size things up, get it lined up with my marks, like so. And now we can begin to see what this thing is going to look like. That's what my viewing window is going to look like. Now, so the thing is, I have a couple of options here. Either I can put some screws in here. A friend of mine, though, who does this sort of thing, says, plexiglass is easy to split if you're not careful, and so you have a couple of options. Either you can screw into the wood itself, or you can put epoxy in here. But the more I think of it, when I think of the Beehive getting hot in the summer and so forth, I don't know what's in that epoxy. I think he said epoxy. And the other thing is, I don't want it to interfere with, I don't want the thickness of this to interfere with the fake back. When I put the fake back in here, I don't want this to be sticking out. So I also have the option to simply draw a line around all this, mark it, take the plexiglass off, and take my wood chisel and chisel out a depth just right, so that when I put this plexiglass in, it is flush with the surface. That's another option for me to think about as I think about putting in the false back. I don't want this to get in the way of the false back. Now I have the plexiglass in place here, and one of the other things I'm going to do is, as you see, the piece that I cut out of here is going to go back in place here, and then I'm going to have the 1/6 as the cover, and this wooden piece is going to be screwed to the 1/6. So when I open this thing up, and as a matter of fact I have the hinges, it's going to just swing down just like so, at least the 1/6 is, and this is going to be on the inside of it. This is what you're going to see when I swing down the cover. And now I've got these little these small brass hinges here that will have two hinges here that's going to work for the 1/6. Well, what I've done here is took a hammer and chisel and chiseled out an area here so that the plexiglass would fit flush, pretty flush here. I might still have to do a little bit here. It's flush here in this section. I think I may have to do just a tiny bit more right in here. So I'll have to take that off and work on that. But anyway, I'm very close, and I found something now that I'm going to drill a hole here and here. Well, maybe just under the corner on both ends. And I have a little piece of metal. When I do the update for our front fence, you'll see where this came from. I'll tell you about it at the time. We had a hinge that was too long, and a couple of hinges, and this had to be cut off. And so now I'm going to take this from the hinge that was cut off the hinge in the front. When I drill that hole, I'll have that plexiglass in here, and this will be a retainer for the plexiglass. And I'm not going to put any kind of sealant on this plexiglass because, in the first place, I don't want to use anything that might get heated up by the sun and then have any kind of fumes in there in with the bees. And besides that, if in the wintertime any cold air comes in through here, well, the bees are going to use propolis and they'll seal it up themselves if there's any leakage of cold air in here. So they'll be sealing it up themselves. All right, well, it's the end of the day here, and wanted you to be able to see what I was talking about. That we installed a gate on our new fence around the front yard. But that gate, in order for it to work, we're going to have to cut a little section off of each end of the hinges. And those, I was looking for something just like this, and this turned out to be just the perfect thing. That after I had used a hammer and chisel and chiseled out a void here so the plexiglass would fit nicely, then I was able to find some 3/4 inch screws and pre-drill that, by the way, so you don't split the wood. And I did that on each end, but then actually I needed something in the middle, and I had a couple of pieces that had a fold on here. You can't see it. There's a piece here about a 1/2 inch wide that's folded underneath, and I wanted that because I wanted additional pressure right here on the middle. And I think I'm going to back off either immediately before or immediately after these in order to put in, when I put my fake back in, so it's going to fit nice and snug there, nice and uniformly, because that plexiglass is even with that wood. So that's the update on the top bar Beehive. Paladin Prepper.